This is Ibarionex from the Candid Frame, for those of you who don't know me. And that disembodied voice that you're hearing is Joe Newman from X-Peditions. They're an organization that have been leading workshops in Vietnam for a good number of years now. And they've been gracious enough to invite me to participate in a workshop and in at the end of this year. So we're going to talk a little about that and just talk about workshops in general. Um, He'll tell you a little bit about X-Peditions, and I'll tell you a little bit about my own sensibility in terms of a photographer and as an educator. So, and for people who've been following me on Substack, I've been toying with the idea of incorporating more video into some of the content that I produce. Not so much to replace the Candid Frame as a video podcast. I think it's always going to remain as an audio podcast, but I'm really curious as to what kind of alternative content I can create using this format. And so thank you for tolerating the little hiccups that are inevitably going to happen as we try to traverse this new landscape. But I think it's exciting. I've seen some other people do some very interesting things here, and I really have enjoyed the community that I have been able to become a part of since moving here to Bordeaux. I didn't have much time before to really dedicate too much time to doing this, but now I have a lot more time. So I'm looking forward to playing with this a little and seeing how it can take shape. So, Joe, you there?
I am here, and I'm sorry, I do not see what I did to turn my camera off, and but I'm
Do you
here,
want to
and
log out and come
let's
back
rock.
in? Do you want to log out and come back in with that?
Yeah, let me do that. Let me see if I can do that. I'll be right back.
Okay. So, and feel free if you have any questions regarding, the workshop or, my own photography and, what I sort of aspire to do when I'm teaching, because I teach, this is not the only workshop that I teach. I also got an upcoming workshop in Japan. I teach online occasionally. I teach largely through the Los Angeles Center of Photography, and I have done a workshop, several workshops there. Um, though Joe will probably tell you, this is a workshop. The Hanoi workshop is something that's been ongoing for quite a while now, and it was led by another photographer who was more popularly known as the strobist. For those of you who go back in the day, David Hobby um, did this really popular blog about how to use portable strobe in photography. Because this is going back a ways, but a lot of people were intimidated by the use of flash and incorporating flash into sort of their workflow. And David sort of um, introduced people to a way of using it and not being intimidated by the whole process of using flash. And people were able to use it incredibly creatively. It wasn't just about using flash when there just wasn't any light available. It became a way of being able to supplement the existing light and creating imagery that really looked amazing. And a whole industry got built around it. So people were, finding ways of being able to take the flashes off camera, using multiple flashes, 2, 3, 4 speed lights in order to create like really creative imagery, not just of portraits, but, even in environmental portraits or documentary work. And for a good period of time, um, you saw a bunch of different manufacturers sort of uh, getting on that bandwagon and producing accessories and products that directly tied into that sensibility. And I've interviewed David, I think at least a couple of times on the show. Yeah, I think twice. And the last time was just a couple of years ago. So if you want to hear about David and his work, just look at the Candid Frame feed on whatever app you use to listen to podcasts. and you'll be able to discover there, um, what is done and what is achieved there. And I've just recently moved to Bordeaux, France. Um, I'm going to be talking about that in a podcast in a couple of weeks. But just the abbreviated version. We lost our home in the Eaton fire last year, and in the midst of struggling to try to figure out, whether to rebuild or not, we wanted to give ourselves a little luxury of time, and so we decided, well, we could stretch the funds that we have, displacement funds that we have, and move to France for a couple of years. And during that time, we can sort of figure out whether we're going to rebuild or whether or not we're going to sort of stay here permanently. And we've been here, it'll be a month, I think. Yeah, a month tomorrow. And so far, so good. We've been really blessed with locating a long term lease. Um, um, and just dealing with the logistics of the French bureaucracy in terms of opening a bank account, getting a doctor, getting a pass to ride the tram and the bus, and it could have been a lot more daunting, but so far it's been really, really nice. And I'm already sharing some things about that on the Substack, and I'll probably continue to do that in terms of written content, and possibly here um, with respect to the video. Um, so Joe, Joe's still having a little trouble getting back in, so I'll just keep ranting. what more do I say? Um, well, I'll say about Bordeaux. What's really fascinating about this place is just the light. It's been really fascinating. I've been spending a lot of time just wandering the streets, and getting up in the morning or in midday, and just choosing a direction and just walking there with the camera. And the streets in Bordeaux are narrower, especially narrower than what you see in Los Angeles. And the light has a remarkable way of bouncing off the surface of these old buildings, these old homes, and creating really strong light and shadow. And in the place that we are right now, when there's a lot of light, there's a home right across that window right behind me. So in the late afternoon, that light will bounce off of that and come in here, and it gives a really nice, wonderful glow to the light that I see here, which is it's just amazing, and I really like that. Um, I'm hoping to explore more about um, um, the more subtle things about the city, because I don't speak the language. I'm taking French classes, so I'm getting acclimated to speaking French. So, hey, Joe.
I'm sorry. The link that we had for me to join had apparently expired. So still don't know what's wrong with my video, but at least you've got my voice. And thank you so
Okay.
much. And sorry to everyone that's out there that about the technical issues. And this is the first time I think either of us have ever used Substack Live. So there you go.
Birthing pains, man. Birthing pains. So I was just telling him a little bit about David Hobby's history, but maybe you kind of take it from there about your relationship with him and how his involvement helped,
Yeah,
found
absolutely, absolutely.
X-Pedition.
I can't say enough about David. David, I had been doing workshops to Cuba, had started doing some workshops to Cuba in 2017. And David, I knew David from way back. We actually went to college together. So, and we're old.
Oh, okay.
And so David and I went to the University of Florida together. We worked on the student paper together. And as people of our age know, we lost touch with each other until about 2007 when I started getting into photography. And I realized that this guy I went to school with was a really big deal in the world of photography. David had started Strobus, at that time and had big following on social media. So, years later, not to make this a long story, years later when I started doing workshops in Cuba, I reconnected with David through Gulf Photo Plus, which is a big photo festival in Dubai. And we got back together and we talked about collaborating on some things. And we ended up doing a Cuba workshop. We did 2 Cuba workshops. And then David went exploring, fell in love with Hanoi, and said, "We got to do Hanoi." So that's how we ended up in Hanoi some 7 years ago.
Okay, I didn't know that. That's fascinating. I didn't know you guys went to college together.
Yeah, yeah. He actually sometimes refers to me as his editor. So, but when it comes to what we've created with X-Pedition Hanoi, it's really was David's brainchild. He put his sort of teaching philosophy, his ethics, his years of experience as a photojournalist, sort of into this concept of bringing people over and sort of teaching them how to see, how to
Yeah.
not think about the photo as the ultimate goal, but the experience. And really, I everything that we do, and I know I'm really looking forward to you sort of joining us and sort of shaping it in your own image as well. But I think that the great thing about it is, from what I know of you in conversations with you, and what you of course know from David, is that you line up very carefully, very closely. That you have a parallel belief in photography and what it means to us as people, as humans behind the lens, not just as some automated, pressing the shutter and walking down the street. So that part, the DNA of this program, I don't think changes at all as you come in and sort of bring your uh, perspectives and your experience to the table. So we're always thankful for what David created and sort of how he shaped this program. But I'm looking forward to where it goes.
Yeah, because I've always been, I've very always appreciated what David has provided the photographic industry, but especially as an educator, whether it was through the Strobus or through the workshops. He brought, even though he was teaching technically, with the Strobus about the use of flash, he always had the idea of what you're trying to communicate in a photograph first and foremost. So it wasn't just about the technical. And I think a lot of people lose sight when it comes to good photographic education is that it should be more than f-stops and shutter speeds. It should be more about technique because you can learn that anywhere, especially now in the age of YouTube. At some point, you know, any person who's been doing photography for a period of time gets competent enough that they can make good pictures fairly consistently. But then comes the question, well, what next? What do I want to say with these photographs? What do I want to express? Because photography is a communication medium. And one of the things that's really sort of important to consider when people want to have a breakthrough is finding the means of finding their own voice through through the use of their camera and producing photographs. And one of the things that David does and what I have done in my workshops is helping people to develop their own sort of unique voice. Um, Not in terms of visual style, because that just comes naturally as a result of making a lot of photographs. What's really important is learning, you know, how you see and experience the world is unique and valuable, and how you can express that in photographs. And when it comes to travel photography and street photography, that's been one of the easiest ways of being able to get in. Oh, there you are. It's been one of the easiest ways for me to be able to explore that. I've done every kind of different type of genre of photography, but for me, the idea of going and exploring the world has always been what's fascinated me about photography since I was 10 when I first picked up the camera. And I think that I think for a lot of people like me, they're kind of shy. They're not going to go up to strangers or want to explore different parts of the world just because they're kind of reticent about it. But the camera gives you a perfect excuse to be able to do it. And and seeing the camera as a passport, not just to make objective photographs of something, but to learn how to make images that allow people to look at the photographs and go, God, what it felt like to be there, what it felt like to meet those people. That's really the ultimate goal. I think for me personally, as a photographer and as an educator, to lead people to how they can do that themselves. Because no no good educator wants people just to be Xerox copies of them. I've always wanted, the students who study with me is to figure out how do you work that works just for you, and how can you finally tap into the things that matter to you, you know, and can you translate that into photographs. And I've seen David do that throughout his career, and I'm looking forward to working with you to making that same experience happen in my own way in Vietnam.
I'll just add to that, and I think that it was beautifully said. What you just described is sort of at the core of our intent in our program. The other thing that I think goes hand in hand with that is something that David has always talked about, and that is be a person first.
Yeah.
You're a
Yeah.
photographer, you're gonna make an image, but be a person first. And that I always find is a failing of a lot of street photography. And no offense to street photographers, I love street photography. I appreciate great street photography, but you're not making a connection with the humans that you see on the street. And oftentimes you're taking it from the hip, or you're shooting, when people are candid and don't know that you're observing them. And that's fine. I think there's a place for that in photography. But what we really work at in our workshop is to know how to build relationships. A good photo, this is often said, again, I'm gonna steal a lot of lines from David. Um, a good photo starts with a conversation oftentimes, right? Being able to have a conversation with a person. And I've noticed this when I've been places, if you lift the camera up first without you know, talking to the person, making eye contact, whatever, it can be a little off-putting to folks who are having their photo taken.
Mhm.
Because a lot of places where we travel, places like Cuba and Havana and other places in the world, um, they have a sense that, they're not these exhibit you're it's not like a human zoo where they're the inhabitants of some place that you're coming to sort of take pictures like you would on a safari or down at the national zoo. These are people, they have lives, so we try to take that into consideration and be human first. And we a lot of our we have a very detailed photographer's handbook that we send out to everyone before the trip, and I sent you a copy of that as well, Ibarionex. The book is some 60 pages, and it became David's. He turned that into a book that he published called the Traveling Photographer's Manifesto, and it's on
Yeah.
Amazon. It's not a sales pitch for his book, but go check it out if you really want a good sense of what we're talking about here. But yeah, that whole thing about people and researching the place, knowing sort of coming what we really urge people to do is to come to Hanoi with a plan, right? Think about it in terms of a shooting an assignment for a magazine. What is the story that you want to walk away with? Is it coffee culture? Is it the food? Um, is it, whatever it is, it works best if you come to Hanoi with that sort of shooting plan. And yes, you can wander the streets. Yes, you have time to do other things. But if you really, the people who sometimes come away with the best images are the folks who approach this as if they're working photographers, as if they're editorial photographers on an assignment in
Yeah.
Hanoi. And obviously you're gonna have we have not even at this point talked about your itinerary. Well, we have an itinerary, but your teaching itinerary. And I know we'll get together with that, and that's gonna be com entirely up to you how you structure that. But I think that is, knowing you, that's also something that you'll probably cover.
Yeah, and, that whole I mean, you crystallized that idea with, being a person first. being a person first, photographer second. Because if you're a person first, then the images will come from that. Some people prioritize photography at the price of their own humanity, and they make images that are very objective, and they're just kind of hollow. And everyone's seen them. I mean, if you've been on Instagram or any other place where a lot of people post a lot of travel pictures, you don't ever get the sense that person was ever connected to the place they visited. you know and for me, it's like I strive and aspire to make photographs where people feel some sort of connection, not just that it was a beautiful place. And some of my favorite images revolve around interactions with people, almost always. The different people that when I've traveled and I've made photographs, I always treasure those moments, which are just encounters with complete strangers. Sometimes they last minutes, sometimes they last an hour, right? But it's that opportunity for connection that I think is just lovely, and and I feel like it's a lost opportunity to travel halfway across the world, make time, spend money, and to go there and not feel connected, and
I
it's a shame.
absolutely agree with you. And not to belabor this, but you're going to come back from Hanoi with great photos. You're going to have pieces that you're going to put in your portfolio. But if you can't come back without some sense that you made a connection, you made real connection with the place, with the people,
Yeah.
um, you've really missed out. You've really shortchanged yourself. In my opinion, you may be very happy coming back with a portfolio, a series of images, and that may be the number one goal. But, there's definitely I would urge you to have an open mind and maybe be open to making those types of connections for sure.
Why don't we talk about, the itinerary, the schedule, and all the different opportunities people are going to have in terms of the experiences there?
Yeah, yeah. So it is 9 days, and, most of the people, that join us, they're coming from the United States. Over the years, we've had quite a number of people from Australia, so that would be our number 2 country,
Yeah.
uh, of attendees is Australia. I know there's some Australians out there now because 'cause I've saw a couple of them join. But there's a love of photography there, and it's also, I guess, in the geographic region where it's not such a long flight. We've also had a lot of Europeans, people from Germany, for example, from the UK that have joined us. But majority are Americans. So it's 9 days. You're coming from the East Coast of the US like myself, you're gonna be jet lagged, so we're always sort of taking it kinda slow the first day. The first day, the only thing we have on the agenda is a dinner. We get together, we have dinner. There's a dish, um, typically, we start at a bun chow place, and it's just amazing. It's one of my favorite Vietnamese, foods, and I will go there on my lunch break sometimes. We have a lot of group dinners, but if I have another excuse to go back, I'll go back during the week. What I wanna say about the dinner is this is the part that's important, is the part about any workshop that you've been on. It's more than just coming in and taking pictures and going out and taking lessons and trying to incorporate what you learn. It's about making connections with the other people in the group, and for the most part, I can say that that's one of the greatest things about these types of trips, and I won't say that, I for sure know that we're not the only people in the world that do this type of thing, but if you've been on a workshop, you walk away with some friendships, you walk away with
Yeah.
relationships. We have a WhatsApp group, where we stick together years later, we're still sending messages and keeping people updated in our alumni chat. Those are the things that I think are great. It's great to be a solo practitioner, but be open to what a group, situation can bring you. The other thing is the 9 days, it goes really quickly, and we usually have, one sort of thing that we do as a group, that can take a couple hours or not, but we have a lot of unstructured time where you shoot on your own. We always keep sort of encourage people to go out in the evening or in the early mornings take advantage of the light, right? The light is wonderful there in the late afternoon, early evening, and the same thing in the morning. So there's a lot of unstructured time. There's some classroom, but we sort of front load that classroom instruction to the first part of the week, and then start giving people blocks of time back as we move on in the week. We start with just the first this first real day on the ground with just sort of a walking tour of Hanoi, right? The one thing I told myself when I started these workshops, created these workshops in Cuba, and then, of course, David mostly created the Vietnam experience, was I didn't want to have. I've been to places, and you may have seen this too, Ibarionex, where you're sitting there and you see a workshop of photographers, a National Geographic workshop come by, and there's like 12 photographers in a line, sort
Mhm.
of all coming down and doing that. So I did not want to have a workshop that does that, because that, to me, is too much hand-holding, and what we do is we try to prepare you before the trip and during the trip to be able to go out and do things on your own as well. But our structured activities with the group, we will do a photo walk. Really, it's always been more of a talk than a photo walk. We walk around the old quarter, we walk around the lake, and we talk about culture, we talk about things, to sort of level set us, everybody.
Mhm.
You bring your camera, you'll get a shot here or there, but the purpose of that is not to take photos. You should come back. You should wake up every morning and go on your own for
Yeah.
walks to do the photos. But this is more, the first day is really just to sort of acclimate ourselves, have a little class time, take some naps because people are still tired, have another group dinner that night. And then we start building into the next day. Typically is a trip to the overnight market, the Long Bien overnight market, and that is an early morning call. We were up at 3:45 because this marketplace runs from about midnight to about 6 a.m. is when it starts packing up, and it's just this bustle of activity. Every meal, if you eat a meal in Hanoi, chances are the food came through this market at some part. So you've got porters pulling carts, pushing carts, motorbikes with boxes stacked up, taller than the driver, and they're all picking up their loads and taking them to restaurants and to other markets around Hanoi. And so we go to that marketplace and we spend a couple hours. We'll get there at, say, we walk over from our hotel, and it takes us about 20 minutes to get there, and then we spend the morning there shooting, and everybody just spreads out. You'll see people from your group, you'll wave to them, but this is really sort of on your own, sort of telling the story of this market, finding images, and it really is one of those. You've been to these places, right? Everybody on this call has been to
Uh,
the place where you just get there and you start tingling and you say, "Oh my gosh, there's so many images here. Where do I start? Where do I focus?" And so it's like one of those things where the light is terrible, but that makes it wonderful, right? You've got this bunch that you've got, like, LED, you got cook fires, the orange glow from a fire, you have the halogen lights, and that all sort of clashes, and you have to sort of, let it breathe, right? You let that
yeah.
those warm lights breathe, and, but it's a great experience. You'll get there. People have been on our workshops, multiple times, which is the most impressive thing that I think that you can say about a workshop is that a workshop, especially a workshop that doesn't change its itinerary from year to year that much, that you have people coming back 5 times. We've had someone that he no longer comes with us, but at the up until 2024 was his 5th trip with us. We've had multiple people that have been more than once, and a lot of times I think they love the experience, they love, sort of being with David and the group, and
Mhm.
and the experiences the relationships they built, but they also realize when they get back, "God, if I could shoot that one thing again, this is what I would do. This is how I would
Yeah,
approach it."
that's
Because
great.
the first time I might have been overwhelmed by that, and you get back and we share photos in the group. We have a Google Drive, we share the photos, and so you can see other people's work. And it's not really to compete, but it does sort of spur you on during the week. You get to see what other folks are doing. And I tell you, um, I'm a photographer. I have commission jobs. I work for nonprofits and I do some corporate work. But I will not. I know for a fact that I'm not the best photographer in the group. You know, when there are other photographers that I always see their work, and the sign of that is that there's always photos that you say, "Geez, I wish I could take that. I wish I would have taken that photo. I wish that had been my photo." And then there's the next level where you say, God, can I even take that photo? Could I have made that frame? That is so sublime. So
Mhm.
that is, you know, but we also have people that are beginners, people who are still learning the craft and learning, you know, their technique and developing style. So it really ranges, but typically they are people that have some experience behind the lens. And I don't want to go through the whole itinerary, but we spend a lot of time in craft villages in Vietnam. They have these small villages where the whole village is dedicated to one trade, rice paper, incense, pottery. And we spend time in those villages making photos of the people that work there. And the thing about when I talk about the philosophy of being a person first is every year that David returned, he would make prints of the people we photographed because he knows we're gonna see them again,
Yeah.
and he would bring prints and hand them out, and so we make this connection with the people in these villages, and sometimes we're like, we show the picture to people and say, "Who do you know where this person is?" So we can give them the photo, and they'll go, "Yes, yes." So it's really a great part of the trip. I think, we'll continue that,
Oh,
as we
yeah.
as we move on, so I'll bring some prints, from the last trip and hand them out to folks because it becomes an annual tradition, right? This year, we're switching out the incense village with the drum village, and the reason for that is, uh it's just become very touristy, right? And
Mm.
our goal was never to be part of that tourist crowd. It's wonderful pictures, they're vibrant. You'll see the pictures of the workers with the incense, stacking them and making them, and you know, it's a great frame, that you can get there, but it becomes you're starting to push elbows with tourists, and it starts to become a little too crowded for what we
Yeah.
wanna do. So we're gonna try the drum village this year. I've never been to the drum village, but our local, producer there too, has suggested it as a good alternative, and if she says so, then you can bank on it. Two is an amazing, amazing producer. She's a Hanoi, native, and, I don't know how David, came met her or got connected to her back in the beginning of these Hanoi tours, but it was the best thing he ever did because there would be no X-Pedition Hanoi without two. She's that essential to what we do, and she's great at helping us understand culture, telling us for example, I didn't know this, um, you do not take a picture of 3 Vietnamese people together because that is an unlucky combination. So,
Good
you
to
know, that's
know.
not something I would have known otherwise.
Yeah.
You know, so she's great with that. She makes sure that the trains are running on time, but she's also just a wonderful person who we love. And in fact, we often get contacted, David and I, about from other photographers around the world, and they'll say, "Do you have someone that can be a fixer for me in Vietnam?" And we'll vet the photographer and we'll say, "Sure, we'll connect you with 2." And I've heard David say this, "If you treat her badly, we will kill you."
And for
So
people who may not be familiar with the term fixer, a fixer is played a role in a lot of photographers' ability to photograph in foreign countries, not just Vietnam, because basically a fixer is your ambassador to the culture, to the community, to the connections that are absolutely necessary in order to be able to make pictures. Oftentimes, photographers who are on editorial assignments for magazines or newspapers would get sent to a particular country, city, and they really had no cultural sensitivity or historical awareness. They just knew that they had an assignment to tell a particular story. And having a fixer really facilitated that because they could answer all of those questions and open doors that you by yourself would never be able to do because you didn't have the luxury of time to build those relationships. And two, is just an absolute gift, which is one of the things that makes this experience so unique, right?
I
Because
Yeah, absolutely. I just had a request maybe 2 weeks ago. Someone was gonna be going over to do some videos of US, military veterans back in Vietnam, and he wanted someone that could maybe help him do some planning, and I connected him with 2. I don't know if that actually happened. That trip should be going on right now. But that the fix yes, what you say about fixers is correct. I could do this tour, this workshop anywhere in the world. I'm looking for a certain criteria. It needs to be something that fits sort of our cost profile. It needs to be something that it's relatively safe as far as our attendees go, as far as walking around it in the middle of the night. So those are things those are some parameters that we're looking for. But if you don't have a good fixer, you can't do it, right? You have to trust this person. They're gonna line up the transportation. They're picking you up from the airport. They're not picking you up. She too doesn't pick you up from the airport, but she gets someone to pick you up from the airport, right? When you come
yeah,
out of the airport, there will be someone with a sign to pick you up. So it is essential. And we've often thought of other places, but if I don't have a fixer I trust or a fixer that really is reliable and dependable and also has a good human interaction, the trip can't work. I've done it in Cuba,
yeah.
so I know how I've worked with fixers in Cuba. I've worked with 2 in Vietnam, and it's essential. It really
Yeah,
is.
because otherwise, what the workshop turns into is it's about destinations. Well, take it to this spot, make some pictures here. Go to this spot, make some pictures here, and you're just like hopping around, going to these locations that are popular with tourists or particularly photographers. You get there, you make your pictures, and then you get shuttled off to another location. And it's not about the experience. It's not about learning anything. It's not about making connections. It's about going to a particular spot to make your photographs, and that's it. And yeah, I've always been averse to that as a participant, but especially as an educator.
Yeah, yeah. I think that the people that are listening, some of them have been on other workshops, some of them will go on workshops. This may not be the workshop for you, but I'm always available, and I don't really mind at all if someone contacts me and say, "Hey, I'm thinking about this. What do you think about this
Yeah.
experience?" Blah blah blah. I'm happy to give that advice, give my recommendations for what it's worth, to someone else. But the number one thing I would say is look at your student to staff ratio. We have a maximum of 12 on this trip, and there's a reason for that. 12 to some people may seem like a lot. It's actually doable with 2 to 3 of us on the trip,
Mhm.
sort of being able to attend to needs and help with questions and so forth. But it comes to a cost thing. I think David, if you know anything about David's sort of background, he's a do-it-yourself type of guy. He'd rather create something from the hardware store for like $2 than go out and buy something at the store made specifically for that purpose and
Yeah.
spend 10. And it's when I was in Dubai, I said, David, let's go get something to eat. He says, yeah, yeah, I have some hummus in my room and some pita bread. And I was like, no, 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 that's not going to work for me. So he's very frugal in that sense of his own money, but he's also aware of other people's money, right? Some people save up years to go on a trip like this, right?
Mhm.
And to be able to afford it at the rate that we charge, 12 makes the number work for us, right? If you look at some places with 8 or 6 workshop participants, you that might actually be a great experience as well, but that price has to kinda go up to make it sort of meet the needs of the instructors, the staff, and just be able to run that program. So, we try to keep it at that point, to make it accessible, to folks. And if you do a Google search and you look at Vietnam workshops, and there's some good ones out there, I'm sure, taught by some really great people. Um, you'll see the pricing typically ranges from $4,000 to $12,000 for
Mhm.
similar sort of curated experiences. So, and there's nothing wrong about. I would love to charge $12,000 for the workshop. because then I could just have 6 people. It would be great. But it would be a certain you really cutting off folks, in their ability to experience something like this when you start making that price point at that at 7,000, 12,000 for a trip to
Yeah.
Vietnam, and I think I think, again, how do I couch this? You get all kinds of folks on our workshop, and I think that that diversity of attendee, the diversity of experience, really enriches sort of the group dynamics that we try to achieve.
And that's often one of the best parts of the workshop is your fellow participants. And yeah, it's never been my experience that you get that. I guess I just been lucky that I've not drawn people that are like hyper competitive, that they're really eager to learn and to learn from each other and to be inspired by each other. Because here's something that I find that happens with all the classes that I teach and all the workshops that I lead is that there's this moment that happens early on because I have several different exercises that I have with people in order to break them out of whatever rut that they're in. Because everyone comes to the table with a particular way of shooting, and I don't want them to come there and just keep shooting the way they've always made images. There's no point in going all that distance to be able to do that. So I try to shake things up. And people are always nervous because it's uncomfortable to do things differently than you're used to doing. And almost inevitably, usually after that first session of sharing images, there's someone who shares a picture and you hear the reaction in the room. You hear, oh, you don't hear, oh, nice picture. Oh, that's sharp. No, you hear, oh. And when that moment happens, it opens the floodgates to people really being willing to be creative and to take risks. And the last workshop I did in Japan, there was a husband and wife couple. And the wife, the husband was like, he was a photographer. He was loaded for bear. He had all his Leica gear and all these lenses. He was impressive. She was using her phone. And there were so many times during that workshop that I used her as an example. Right? Because she wasn't burdened by all these shoulds and shouldn'ts about photography. For her, it was a completely intuitive thing. And there were so many times that she would share a picture and you would hear that reaction in the room. And I think that's the goal for everybody is to make a picture that you don't just look at it and go, oh, that's a good picture. Oh, that's wonderful light. And all that other stuff that us as photographers are always, you know, providing feedback about. To make a picture where you hear the reaction to the photograph, that's great. And I like the fact that in the workshops and the classes I've led, that when that moment happens, it's like a tipping point. And after that, it's just magical. And when you have a group of people like that, especially with the kind of group that, we're talking about attending this, it sort of cascades. And people find themselves, they discover that they're capable of making photographs that they didn't think they were capable of doing before they attended. And that's really the ultimate goal, is to discover that you have greater potential as a photographer than you ever imagined for yourself. And then take that knowledge and use it when you go back home.
Yeah, yeah. I wanna go back to one thing that you said that where your example, you said the husband with all the gear. I get it. I get it. I have a lot of gear myself, and, a lot of it's used for work. When I go on vacation or a trip like this, I try to carry as little as I want, and, gear use is always gonna be a personal choice. Do you wanna carry that around? Are you able to carry that around for a full day? That's fine. This is a trip, sometimes it's a trip of a lifetime, sometimes it's a trip of once every couple years. Who am I to tell you not to bring your 7,200 or your 300, to this trip? Because, hey, you have a specific image you wanna create, and you're gonna be here, you're not gonna return for maybe never. Do what you have to do to make that happen. But we, And even the name of the workshop, X-Pedition Hanoi, it's a nod to Fujifilm's X series cameras. If you know
Mm.
David and yourself as a Fujifilm photographer, you know that the X series has a sort of, um, the people that are drawn to it are people who like the smaller form, that liked the ability to travel light and nimble, and still have a lot of capability. So we call it X-Pedition Hanoi for that very reason. We try to urge people to sort of leave some of that gear in the hotel if you brought it, leave it at home if you're brave enough. Um, Bring a 35 millimeter, a 50 millimeter, or a 24 millimeter, and fixed focal length primes, fast primes are great, and bring those on the trip. Don't bring the big zooms. Unless you're a landscape photographer, you might argue, well, that's my thing. I want to make some landscapes while I'm there. I got to bring the zoom. Okay, fair enough. But otherwise, for a lot of the documentary work, a lot of the street work we're doing, that 35 millimeter sweet spot is
Yeah.
gonna be where you live, right? And the faster the better, because, you know, you might not be opened all the way up, but you go down to 1.8, 2.0, and you're gonna hit that sweet spot. So yeah, I totally get it. I've seen people come on trips with 2 bodies, on their shoulders and a bag on their back, and I'm like, "Brother, if that is you, that is fine, but me, my back, I'm too old to be carrying that much
Yeah,
gear
same
around."
here.
So, yeah, I love it. I mean, it really is up to the person, but think about being light and nimble and being able to move quickly.
Do you have any comments or questions in the chat? I can't see anything on my end.
I can see it. I can see the chat. It's actually covering my face on the screen. But if anyone has a question, I can read them out to Ibarionex, and happy to answer them, or happy to answer them offline if there's something you want to contact me through, or Ibarionex through the app. Happy to do it that way as well.
Yeah, while we're waiting for that, one of the things that appeals to me talking about gear is the importance of simplicity. Because I have sort of just gravitated to just taking my um X106. Is that what it is? I should know better, but just taking that small camera and a backup,
Yeah,
just in case. But taking more gear with me, like you said, it just becomes burdensome. And I just like, oftentimes it just, when I'm walking the streets here in Bordeaux, it's just with one camera and that one lens. Because I don't want to think about carrying something. I don't want to worry about switching lenses. It's like I just want to stay committed to that particular focal length, which is a 35 millimeter equivalent. And I've just kind of I my eye is in tune with that field of view and
yeah.
what I can do with it. And it allows me to take my attention off the camera and in the moment.
Absolutely, and that longer zoom is a crutch, especially for someone who's a little shy in documentary work or street work. It allows you to stand too far back and not be engaged in part of the scene. It keeps you from making that conversation, and keeps you from making that approach and smiling. Even if, the great thing about technology that we have today is that Google Translate, there's a plug for Google, is one of the best things that have come around when you're someplace that you can, um, put a phrase in and show it to a person, and you
Right.
have that way to communicate. And I found this in Japan too. I know you've taught in Japan, Baronex, but it was the first time I went, it was so difficult. I couldn't, communicate. I couldn't see street signs to know where I was. But
Oh,
Google
yeah.
Translate was amazing. I don't know if that's been a situation with you there. In Vietnam, you will find some people who can speak English, of course, but you also find a lot who don't or aren't comfortable speaking English. So, finding ways to communicate is awesome. Two is going to be around. The great thing about two, and one of the things that she does is we have people who because we have so much unstructured time, they'll say, well, hey, I want to do this, or I'm really looking for this as part of my storytelling. Can you give me some advice? And she's always there to be able to we had someone who wanted to go to a snake farm, a farm where they raise snakes, and I guess
Okay.
they raise them for many different purposes, not for pets, but, for use in whether it's their skins or their meat or what have you. And, she directed him there. He went off on his own, and was able to come back with some great pictures of the snake farm. Uh, Hanoi, back to Hanoi, it's such a wonderful city. It's such the people are it becomes a cliche when you say the people are nice, but they truly are very nice and warm and generous and accommodating. But building connections with people that we see year after year has also been very fulfilling. But the thing about it is the first impression you have in Hanoi is just this chaos, right?
Yeah.
You get there and there's 1,000,000 motorbikes that are scooting to and fro, and there's no, like, way to cross the street, without walking into this stream of motorbikes, and it really takes some nerve to say, "Okay, just step out and keep walking, and you'll be able to cross the street. Do not stop and start because that's what throws them off. As long as you're walking steady across the street,
Yeah.
people they will not run you over. So that usually takes into day 3 before we get that. We actually have a question here. Hey,
Okay.
this is
Great.
from Mona Avalos. She says, "Hi, excited to join the group in the fall and learn from each other. Is it Okay, this scroll option here is not great. Is it possible to hear from former explorers about their experience, their personal highlights or lessons they learned? Thanks for the opportunity to hear about it in this space." Um, yeah, I think that's a great idea, Mona. Um, what we will do, there's a lot of information that's gonna flow from me to the group members between now and the trip and, the guidebook and so forth, but I wanna have at least 1 or 2, Zoom calls sorta before we go, so that people can get to know each other, and maybe I'll invite someone who's been, or make them available for questions that you might have about that type of, what they learned from their experiences and so forth. So good question. And just to let everybody know, I actually know Mona, and you know Mona as well from the photo festival that I used to run. I organized a
Yeah.
photo festival here in DC from 2017 to 2021, and we brought so many big names and great photographers, not just big names. We brought yourself to. I don't know if you came 1 or 2 years.
Just came for
Um,
one. Yeah.
you were gonna come the 2nd year, but then the pandemic happened. But Mona worked with us on that festival, so happy to see Mona, join us on this trip as well. Let's see, was there another question? Nope. Alright.
All right. Well, Joe, thanks for doing this with me, despite the hiccups at the beginning.
Oh my gosh.
Uh,
Well, you know what? I still don't know how I got back on and everything worked out, but I've enjoyed it. And I'll just say this too. What I really enjoy is the Substack photo community, right?
yeah.
I'm blown away by sort of the how robust it is, how vibrant it is, how people are willing to share. It's not always easy to share, and being able to sort of have an actual community. I mean, let's not kid ourselves. I mean, it's still very big and very broad, but you can find some really good people sharing work that's just amazing and sharing thoughts on photography, yourself included,
Oh, yeah.
about photography. I'm really enjoying it, and I'm glad I'm here actually because it reminds me of, like, when I first sort of became interested in photography and I was searching out everything, Flickr, Facebook, wherever, Instagram, all those things offer some sort of community, but really hasn't been community like, what I've found so far on Substack, so I'm very happy to be here.
Yeah, I really enjoy the dialogues that are happening here and the opportunities for discovery. There
Absolutely.
can be so much navel gazing when it comes to, social media, and this has really been really good. in terms of sort of building community, creating connections, and being able to inspire each other,
Yeah.
right? And I've just started tapping into it seriously in the last month, but I look forward to doing it more. And as Joe said, if you have any questions about this workshop, um, feel free to reach out through Substack, and we'll get back to you. Joe on the sort of the logistics side, the details in terms of the workshop. But if you have any photographic questions or about any sort of concerns in terms of your process in this particular event, feel free to give me a holler. So thanks again, Joe, and thanks for everyone for joining me. We'll see you next time.
Thank you. Bye bye.